We're back with season 2. 4. Sorry, someone in chat was saying season 4, episode 10, Rainbow Falls. The episode in which Rainbow learns a lesson about loyalty for the 872nd time. But no, they're practicing for the Equestria Games, and they have to learn whether they can qualify or not. And the really rich team, the Hawks, decide to go against the Ducks. And for some reason, the Ducks aren't doing well, but it's okay because they've got gumption and they... Hang on, I think I'm mixing up the episode a bit. Anyways, let's actually talk about the episode, shall we? This is by Corey Powell. Let's start with that. Corey Powell has an interesting... so he's done Sleepless in Ponyville, which I liked, and Just for Sidekicks, which I also liked back in Season 3. This episode feels like it should be better than it is how I'm going to start with that. I'm trying to think how to explain this, but let's just go through the episode proper. So first of all, Bulk Biceps is back. Actually called Bulk Biceps for the first time. Hasn't actually been called that before. And Pinkie Pie's cheerleading. Applejack brings food. Rarity's going to be supporting them with clothing. That's cool. You know, I kind of like that. Ignoring the fact that I make fun. I just made fun. I compared this to the Mighty Ducks. Anybody ever see that movie? But the truth is, there is something enjoyable about rooting for the underdog. It's an extremely common human trait, especially in the last century. So the idea of, you know, rooting for Ponyville when they've got so much stacked against them makes a degree of sense. And the idea that most of the Pegasi are otherwise occupied or simply not, you know, part of the games also makes sense. So, you know, Rarity lost her fashion sense. Yeah, I'm not sure what's up with that. I've seen the stuff she's made. She can make some good stuff, you know? Yeah, the David and Goliath thing, exactly. People want to root for Goliath, wow. They want to root for David. Nobody's rooting for the Borg, right? Right? Point, though, being that you get the idea there. Now, hang on one second. I need to check something. That's what I thought. We do have to add... Whoops. There we go. We do have to immediately add 2 continuity counters. Just back to back. So let's get those out of the way first. The first is for the Equestria Games, and the second is for... There we go. And the second is for the recurring theme. So that's 2 of Season 4 story arcs, which are continuing in this episode. That counts. It's continuity. Recurring arcs is one of the best forms of continuity, so there we are, right? In my opinion, obviously. I suppose we should also, while we're at it, add 1 more continuity counter for the fact that they actually acknowledge her time at the Academy. Hope you enjoyed that, because now we're going to add to the continuity counter, but we'll get to that in a moment. So, they have this thing where Applejack, you know, throws a pie up at them, and she's like, "Sorry, I got the idea from them." I want you to imagine eating a snack at high velocity in midair. That just sounds terrifying. That, you know what that is? That is a shortcut to getting something stuck in your throat. That's what that is. Whatever. Rarity's going to touch up the horseshoe. Make sure it looks nice, you know. Rainbow's getting all frustrated. Of course she is, because Rainbow likes to win. And then the episode really pulls the Mighty Ducks thing. Like I said, I'm poking fun. But the reason I actually came up with the Mighty Ducks parallel is because how many of you have seen a show or a movie which does this format? There's the plucky underdogs. And they don't, you know, they don't have money and they have to make do with what they've got, but they've got heart. And then there's the reigning champions, and they've got money, and they've got resources, and fancy training, and sophisticated, super high-tech stuff. I mean, Rocky does this, for God's sakes, right? Right? This is an extremely common formula. I actually started listing stuff. The Wonderbolts have a cheerleading team. They have the fans set up. They have massages. They have custom-tailored outfits. They've got feed bags while they're flying. And I gotta scroll down a little bit, because they actually show up even more stuff later. Oh, did I not write them down? Maybe I didn't write them down. maybe I didn't write them down, but the point being, they have tons and tons of obvious showcasing of, let's call it what it is, muffin? Wow. Money. I was reading Griffin and Muffy at this, and Goofy. Oh my god, now I'm screwing up my words. They have money, is the point. They have money. And, I can't forget that, Weodes. And it's displayed at every scene the Wonderbolts are in. They clearly have the financial backing of everything. You know, they've got all this wonderful, fancy, incredible stuff. Oh yeah, here we go. They also are being shined up. This is where I took my notes. They're being shined up, and they wipe their glasses, and they make sure to get the outfit just for Rainbow. And they've got the team that comes over, which is ready to go, and they've got the hats on. They're treated like they're Formula One cars, basically. Like, you ever watch Formula One? There's a swarm of people who go over those cars to make sure those cars are completely, precisely ready to go at a moment's notice, right? And then, of course, every single one of these scenes is then immediately contrasted with whatever our team is doing, which is, oh yeah, we've got these little muffin things that Applejack baked, and we've got this weird little custom cheerleading squad thing, which isn't all coordinated, and we don't have the feed bag thing, and it's just straight cut. Every single one is immediately contrasted. They even do the music contrast. Dun, 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 is the Wonderbolts. Dum dum dum, bum 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 is what the Ponyville song sounds like. The episode hits this point so hard, it got a little bit egregious to me, actually. I'm not going to give the episode a negative for it, but come on, I get it. So, small little point. Yeah, exactly, Roscoe. And no, I noticed the Griffin team. In fact, I even made a note about them there. But they qualified, so, So, there's an interesting tidbit. It's probably one of the better elements in the actual episode. When... Oh, where are they? I put them over there, didn't I? When Spitfire walks up to Rainbow and decides to try and convince Rainbow to join, she puts on her glasses. And her glasses remain on her for the duration of most of the episode. Just point that out. So they have the Formula One car thing I mentioned. And up until this point in the episode, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm kind of with this. Then they ask Rainbow to permanently swap teams. This is when the episode actually starts to lose me. Up until this point, I've actually been with the episode. It's got, continuity. It's got recurring characters. It's got, the underdog team versus the upper dog team, which is a good story, as long as it's well done. But at this moment, this is when it loses me, because now they're like, hey, you should join our team permanently. And that's like, oh, you just want me to straight up abandon my team to join yours. Insert football joke here. I'm sure you guys can come up with a few examples of this. Right? Then they moved to LA. Anyways. So, this... Which football? I was actually referring to American football specifically, because I hear a lot of people who get rather upset about people swapping teams. But that also happens with European football too, so make of that what you will. Yeah, so... okay. That's neat. I think the problem is I'm having a really hard time explaining my problem with the episode, because it falls completely flat for me. I think the first problem is that it relies on the fact that... How do I put this? This would actually work better as a Season 2 episode, or even Season 1, rather than Season 4. Rainbow has kind of gotten her point of loyalty across well before now, right? So the intended Aesop of choosing your friends over choosing winning falls completely flat. And I feel like there's another theme here, which I'll discuss last, which actually works, but I don't think the episode really goes into that theme. In fact, frankly, I don't think the episode earns the actual theme that I think would work at all. So Rainbow and Spitfire's just terrible, right? I mean, what the heck, Spitfire? She's just kind of okay. But yeah, this is counter to Rainbow's personality. Spitfire has actually already learned this episode. Or it's learned this. God, I need to stop reading while talking. Spitfire has already learned this point in the previous Wonderbolts Academy episode, which we also bragged on, by the way, for having its issues. But yeah, as SA2K points out, this is something that's been hammered in the second episode of the entire show. Yeah, this shouldn't be a decision, never mind a non-choice. I'll cover that more in a minute. Anyway, so she decides to not choose, of course. Credit where it's due, Pinkie Pie once again got a laugh out of me. If I ever get my hands on that, he'll rip with the tail. You got me there, episode. That was funny. So she decides to lie and, pretend like she's super injured. And they even take her into the medic area where, funnily enough, the medics say, there's nothing wrong with you. And I do like how Twilight doesn't make the choice for her. I do like how Twilight kind of hands off this one. She's intelligent enough to pay attention, but she decides to make Rainbow choose, as she should, admittedly. You'll also notice, and this is kind of an interesting thing, you'll notice that Applejack and Rarity are still trying to help. They're still trying to do the best that they can, regardless of the fact that they don't have the resources. Now, that is probably the only part of the episode that really hits that underdog part the way it should. Because one of the values of the underdog point is something that Mr. Red has actually been talking about in chat, that he thinks I've been ignoring. He's wrong. I see everything, Mr. Red. Because the whole point is the team with the money and the resources and the power, well, they've got all the fancy stuff, but they don't give a damn. They're just playing to win or whatever, right? And the idea there, which isn't always true in real life, but can be true in real life, is that the people who give a damn do better. And I can explain this very easily to my viewers because you guys play video games. Now, there are some good AAA games, and there are some bad indie games, but how many indie games that were made by a small team or one person who loved what they were doing are better than AAA titles? So the idea, this is the one point where it really nails it. Rarity and Applejack and Fluttershy and Bolt Biceps and Derpy, who doesn't say anything because of stupid controversy. Sorry, I meant to remove the word stupid from that. They're there. They care. They bother. And then the episode immediately contrasts that with Soren, who hasn't even been visited by anyone. Now, that actually irritates me. The fact that they wouldn't even visit him other than to say, nope, sorry. What the crap? But, again, that does get across the point. Allow me to use another parallel really quick. Star Trek. Now, there's an episode of Star Trek Voyager called Flashback. Now, I'll go ahead and give you an idea here. Flashback is an episode in which Tuvok starts having some flashbacks about his time on the on the Excelsior under Captain Sulu. Okay, if you remember the episode. Now it's an okay episode, but it's ultimately kind of soulless, and frankly, it's subpar even by Voyager standards. I would rate that a green episode. And the only reason it's that high is because Sulu's actually awesome, and there's some good stuff in the past. At the same time that episode came out, Deep Space Nine came up with an episode. It's called Trials and Tribulations. That episode's purple. It's an episode in which Cisco and the Defiant crew go back in time to the time of Trouble with Tribbles and are involved with those events. Now, what's the difference between these two episodes? I'm just going to tell you right now. The difference is Flashback was the next episode on the docket that had to be written. That was modified from its original format to add the Sulu and the Excelsior stuff into it. It was just a job. Trials and Tribulations had every single creator working involved in it. The actors and the directors, plural, and the writing staff, plural, were all involved in that because they loved Star Trek and they wanted to do this. They loved their job. You see the difference? Now, I cannot prove this with total certainty, but I have argued many times that actually giving a damn will, generally speaking, produce a better result than not, even if you have the resources on the not. Now, I'm talking about this point so long because I think this point should have been more the overall theme of the episode. I think they should have done a better job of, rather than this being a test of loyalty, or whether or not Rainbow Dash, what should Rainbow Dash choose? I think this should have been far more about the idea of the connection, the heart, and the care that the Ponyville people, including their support people, are putting into it, rather than the completely almost robot-like approach of the much larger and well-funded team that Cloudsdale has because of the Wonderbolts. Show that contrast, and then bring up the point for Rainbow. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, Fluttershy saying, I know how much you like to win. That hit her like a ton of bricks. And that makes sense, too. See, I do think that theme works. I want to tell you guys a little bit of a story. I used to play a game called World of Warcraft. You've probably never heard of it. It's a little indie team game, but I used to raid seriously in that game. In fact, I used to be a damn good raider in that game. I used to want to be in the top % of raiding teams because I had been. I was one of the first people on my server to take down Ragnaros, to give you an idea. And I used to, I don't know, I don't even remember Zachariah. I used to be, I was one of the early people who got into Hyjal, and was in part of the upper 10% of the people who had actually taken down Black Temple, and so forth and so on, right? I'm not bragging, by the way. I liked that. I liked being at the top of my game. I liked doing 4-chest bear runs in Zulaman, right? I liked being one of the people who could be that part of that, to excel at that. To be at the top of my game in something. To be legitimately great at something. I can't believe you remember that, Shikor. Yeah, that is actually exactly what happened. But let's ignore that for a moment. Fast forward a few years. Wrath. Now, my friend, my best friend, one of my best friends, Gary, who I consider my brother, he was part of a team, a raiding team, and I was his tank. And one week, the best team, FU, Fatal Union, they wanted me to join their raid team. And they were top tier at that point in time. Now, I was like... And I decided to go ahead and go with them. Because I wanted to win again. I wanted to be that top tier again. I wanted to be at the upper edge, the bleeding edge, racing for server firsts again. I wanted that. I screwed over Gary that week because of that. Would you believe I feel bad about that to this very day? No joke. About 4 years ago, I apologized to Gary about that. His response was, what? Because he didn't even remember. I felt terrible about it, though. I chose the winning team over my friend. My point is, I can personally understand the kind of mentality that Rainbow's in, and I have felt this way more than a few times in my life, and I know other people who have felt this way too. Sometimes it is nice to have that. It feels nice to be a part of that, to really push yourself, or to really excel, or to really be a part of that, or whatever, right? And so, I think if the episode focused more on the being a part of the winning team, being a part of that excellent, pushing the envelope of what she could do element, that might have worked better. Rather than, do you choose the winners or do you choose your friends? Now, those sound like the same thing, but you could see how it's actually not, right? And of course, as someone in chat pointed out there, and forgive me, it's already scrolled off, but Rainbow Dash's ego, I've said this so many times, it's very weak, right? I call it's 1 HP. Anything bursts that and she has an issue. So of course she wants to constantly prove herself and do the best she can in order to. But the problem is I would have to restructure almost the whole episode to really make this work, I think. Because the skeleton of it, like, there's some good core ideas there, but it just falls flat in almost every respect. And the only way it can ever actually move forward is by basically stomping all over itself. Yeah, like glass. She has glass armor. It's fine until something gets through it, and then she's screwed. So sorry for ranting for a bit. I feel like I still haven't really fully explained my point. But I do feel like this episode is probably going to be average or below average. Yeah, exactly, SA2K. Nobody... Well, I think Rarity kind of would fit in this. But obviously we need to do the Rainbow Dash. Sheen, the Friendship Flash. We need her to get her element of loyalty thing. So we need to have a Rainbow Dash episode for the season-long story arc. So it makes a degree of sense to push for this, for Rainbow. Now, I've been thinking about this a bit, because it's me, and you know what I would have done? I would have had Cloudsdale just kind of being there and doing their thing. All funded and decent, but I would have had them be much more distant and cold. And I wouldn't have them be the team Rainbow Dash is tempted to join. Hear me out for a second. So, I would have had Cloudsdale be like this professional, detached team. Oh no, Soren's injured, whatever. Go take a wash. Get back quickly, Not I hope you're okay, just, get well as quickly as you can. We need to get practicing. Just to emphasize that, right? And Rainbow sees that and is like, But then there's this other team that's doing a lot better in the competition. Now, it could be the fourth team. I don't even remember what the fourth team is representing. Or it could be the Griffins. But either way, it's the other team. They're doing pretty good. They're silver material. But if they had someone else on their side, they might actually be able to push for gold and surpass the Wonderbolts. And so they're like, hey, do you mind helping us with our maneuvers? Do you think we should push this, and blah blah blah. And so Rainbow Dash agrees to help them, just as a kindness thing, and she feels that exhilaration of being at the top of her game, about really pushing herself, really pushing the limits, and really being the best. And it appeals to her and excites her, and she's like, yes, this is incredible. Oh yeah. Right. That's how I would restructure the core element of the episode, I think. I actually, you know what, I kind of like Weoud's idea. Ejecting the Wonderbolts would probably be a good idea here. I mean, why are the Wonderbolts allowed to compete in this, I mean, I know you have qualifying to weed out people, but god dang, you have 4 slots. The Wonderbolts are guaranteed one of them. Anyways, point being... But yeah, I think the episode just falls on. I'm just gonna move on. Derpy shows up. She doesn't speak, which is a darn shame, but she's really cute, absolutely adorable. The way she kind of drops the pin banner. I don't know what you actually call that. The pennant you wave around, right? I don't remember what it's called. Oh. And then we see the friendship flash. And this is when we find out that Spitfire and Fleetfoot flat out lied to keep Soren off the team. Jesus. What the hell? Completely... that's the part that really starts to completely destroy the episode for me. Oh yeah, by the way, we wanted Rambo, so screw you. Pennant, thank you. And yeah, Soren just goes back, and they just learn a lesson, and everything's cool. Because, at the end, she takes her sunglasses back off. She's like, hey, you want to fly for us again? Even though we lied to your face and tried to get you off the team. I would have actually, like, okay, obviously I would have ejected the Wonderbolts entirely or made it so they're not the enemy. That's weirdly see-through. But if we were stuck with the Wonderbolts, I would have Soren peace out after that. And I agree, I would have had the Wonderbolts rep take a significant hit after this. I would have this come up in future episodes. Remember, this is freaking Equestria. And while they're, you know, not everyone is super peaceful, happy, whatever, the idea of what the Wonderbolts did should really piss off the common people, right? I know it'll never come up again. But again, I'm writing the show now. It's my show now. Oop, that was a terrible snap. Let's try that again. There we go. My show now. So we're going to make this matter, damn it. We're going to have some continuity, by God. That's actually a good idea, R. Spruce. The Wonderbolts could have been there to scout, looking at young talent and seeing who they could pull. I like that idea. That's a good one. Oh yeah, there's also a military. It's total crap, though. I would have one of the season-long story arcs be restoring the military and learning that the military isn't a bad thing. I'm dead serious. I would actually have that be a story arc. Anyways, moving on. So, Rainbow makes the obvious choice. Duh. She chooses to be with her friends. Spitfire takes off her sunglasses. Whatever. And, Twilight's cheerleading wig looks adorable for some reason. I don't even know why, but it suits her very well. Yeah, no kidding, Baron. I like how Fluttershy is actually an acceptably good flyer. She should probably be a little better than that, but it still makes sense. She's not a bad flyer. We've heard this before. We've seen this before. And then, yeah, the Griffin... This is where I mentioned in my notes about the Griffin team. I'm kind of curious about the Griffin team. Yeah, exactly, Weouts. Can we have actual competent people in charge? Anyways. I had one last thing to talk about here. Let's add some counter... How many counter-continuity counters do we add for this episode? I'm actually not sure how many to add for this one. Like, my knee-jerk reaction is 2. One for the Wonderbolts and one for Rainbow. What do you guys think? But while you're debating that, there's a bit in the episode the episode 79. Well, okay, Fukunk will just double or push the continuity counter ahead of the continuity counter because it's a race, right? That's how that works. There's 2 strategies when it comes to management. One of those strategies is shore up your weak points, and one of those strategies is shore up your strengths. Now, any given strategy is going to lean in one of these directions. You can try to balance it, but you're always going to put more effort and time into where you're weakest or where you're strongest. Now, it's probably worth mentioning that neither of those are technically correct. It's either case by case or just a matter of your own personal ideology. But I bring that up because I tend to lean more towards the shore up your weaknesses thing. You know, if I'm playing a strategy game and I have a city which is not doing great and a city which is doing very, very well, I will probably put more time and money and resources into the city that's not doing well to bring it back up, right? I mentioned that because something the episode never actually addresses, but it totally should have, in my opinion, is that Rainbow could have had her pushing herself, you know, being the best she can, while at the same time really trying to shore up weaknesses thing. I'm saying this wrong. Her going to fly with the Wonderbolts is shoring up the strengths. We're making our thing 1% better because we're already at the top end. But shoring up the weekend, trying to make the weekend see us, you know, being pushed up, is something that she could have done with with her team, with the Ponyville team. Try to make it so that she works with them. You'll actually notice in the episode, Fluttershy is fine, as I mentioned, and even Bulk Biceps manages to use his limitations in a way, basically work around his limitations to do a decent job of his own part of the relay. Yeah, exactly, SA2K. Rather than just focusing on, you know, trying to figure out, okay, well, what do we have and what can we use, right? And that could have been part of the episode too, and it's not. At the end of the episode, they do manage to basically do exactly that. They just don't say it. But yeah, she's good. Let's work on these two. I don't know. Food for thought. Food for thought. Because that could have been another interesting theme they just completely abandoned. What if Rainbow takes her loyalty too far? That would be a good story arc. I don't know if I'd put it here, because the whole point is demonstrating loyalty so that they get the key for the end of the series, or for the end of the season. So I wouldn't do that in this episode. But I like that idea in general. Someone who is, I'm loyal, I have to stay with my friends. And that being a bad thing. Because just about anything taken to extremes is a bad thing. If I take this and just start glugging nonstop, that's a bad thing, right? Even drinking, it's my favorite example of that. Even water is something that can be bad when taken to an extreme. So, food for thought. So now I got to rate this episode, and I'm actually kind of torn. I've obviously talked a fairly large amount about it. At absolute high end, this would be average. Absolute high end. Honestly, I'm thinking about giving this one a below average. I don't think this deserves blue status. I don't think this... Yeah, that's a good example, Baron. I don't think this deserves to be bottom of the barrel. But this episode did not impress me. And that's a damn shame, especially for a Season 4 episode, because I like Season 4 in general. Epic music plays. What do you guys think? Green with yellow polka dots. Yeah, no, I think I am going to give it green. Because, see, here's what I like to think of it. What if the episode was slightly different? So I mentally think of the episode, and let's remove Twilight, remove Derpy, and what do we have left? And what we have left is not good, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think we're going to color that green. Sorry, Mr. Powell. So, let's chop off the local recording.